Part 13. Let's carry on. So now we're looking at 1.11.10, the compliance resolution process. So what is the definition of this complaint resolution process? It says a complaint is an expression, so the client express their dissatisfaction, and they do that to an organization, which is the FSP, regarding the FSP's related products or the service they received, or if already complained, the way the complaints handling process itself, where a response or a resolution is explicitly or implicitly expected. They expect a resolution or a response. Because sometimes they don't get any feedback. So that is a definition of the complaints resolution process. When you look at the basic guidelines, so the basic guidelines of systems and procedures, so a provider must implement and maintain an internal, not external, internal complaints resolution system and the procedures based on the following: comprehensive complaints policy. The provider must maintain a comprehensive internal complaints policy that outlines the provider's commitment to the resolution of complaints. So how will the provider handle this complaints policy, and how are they committed to resolve it? Client's knowledge. A provider must ensure that the complaints resolution process is transparent, so nothing must be hidden from the client, and it must be visible so that the clients have full knowledge of the process that they must follow when they complain. Sometimes the FSPs, they hide those kind of things, and then they think, yeah, if they hide it, the client doesn't know, the client will give up. Well, if it comes out and the FACE Act finds out about this, or you report it, they report it to the Ombud afterwards because some family or friend or somebody gave them information, then that FSP will be in deep trouble, and the representative as well. Easy access. The provider must ensure that their facilities are accessible to clients. So although the client wants to complain against you, the FSP, that you must open your facilities, and it must be easy accessible to the clients for lodging the complaints. In other words, if that client does not have a telephone or access to internet or computer services, they walk into your business, you cannot show them the door and tell them to go somewhere else. If they want to complain against you, the FACE access, you and the code of conduct, the Ombud's rules, you must open your business to them. You must give them the telephone that they can call the Ombud to speak to him. You must give your computers and printers to them and the internet so that they can type the complaint, that they can email it, or that they can print it. If you don't do that, you will be in troubles as well. Because here it says, the provider, not me, must ensure that their facilities are accessible to clients for lodging that complaint against that FSP. The access to the complaints resolution process should be available through the following channels. So the client can go to any office or branch that is open to clients. It doesn't mean the head office where clients are not allowed. Any branch where clients are welcome. That you must give your fax lines to them if they want to fax, your telephone, your electronic format, that is your computers and your internet, or through the help desk or through post. I had, when one of my workshops, when I did RE, I had a person from one of our well-known banks in South Africa. I will not name the bank, but that person told me, Jaco, I had a complaint against me. And in our bank, we had to open the facilities. I said, yeah, I had to help the client to come in. We had to give them a computer. But they sat there on the table. They typed the complaint against me and the bank. And we had to open the internet so that they could have emailed that complaint. They also wanted to print it out. We had to allow them to print it out and to make copies. And yeah, so, and then they also had to make some tea as well. But that's what they have to do. They said, although they complained against them, they knew they have to do it. Otherwise, they will be in deeper trouble. Fairness. The provider must ensure that a resolution of a complaint is conducted in a manner which is fair to all parties. You see, it must be fair to the clients who wants to complain. It must be fair to the staff of the FSP, and it must be fair to the provider. Everything must be fair. Fair resolution. An FSP, that's excluding the representative, must ensure that the fair and effective resolution of a complaint by implementing and maintaining an internal complaints resolution that covers the following minimum requirements. Ensure availability of adequate human resources and other resources. Ensure that all relevant staff are trained and familiar with the internal system and procedures for resolving complaints. Your staff must be trained and they must know how to handle this. And this must include full knowledge, not part knowledge, full knowledge of provisions of the Act, the rules and the specific code of conduct about complaints resolution. So if they don't know, send them on a course or something so that they know what to do. Ensure that there are clear guidelines provided for the processing of routine complaints. Ensure that all officials responsible for facilitating the complaints process have a clear understanding of their mandate. Ensure that a process exists for the escalation of non-routine or serious complaints, and that the authority for this process is delegated to staff with enough expertise. Ensure that a follow-up process is in place to avoid repeat complaints and to improve service. Ensure that no charges are levied for the utilization of the internal complaint system or for facilitating the resolution of the complaint. So you cannot charge the client R7.50 because they use the computer, R1.50 for every page they print out, etc. No charges. All right, then when you look at specific guidelines, the FSP, once again, excluding the representative, is required to meet specific outcome in resolving the complaints and including the following. All data captured through the internal complaint resolution system must be reduced to writing as required. All clients must have access to procedures at any appropriate office or branch or by electronic medium. Availability of the internal complaints process must be made public either through the press or electronic announcements or in a separate communication to existing clients. Not social media. Okay, not social media. Okay. Include the following details in the commission: the rights and the duties of the provider and the client. So the client must also get their rights plus their duties. What are expected from them? Like they must put it in writing, they must give all the facts, etc. A clear summary of the provision of the Act, including what the client should do if the provider dismissed the complaint. So if the provider dismissed the complaint and say, I'm not interested, what must the client do? Then they must go to the ombud. Okay, and the client wishes to pursue the complaint by referring it to the ombud. You must give the name and address and relevant contact details of the ombud. All right, those three things. You must give the name, that's one, the address, two, and contact details, three, of the ombud to the client. Stipulate that complaints must be in writing. People, the ombud don't accept complaints if it's not in writing. And if the client doesn't put it in writing, well, then you are lucky if they want to complain to the ombud. The ombud wants it in writing, otherwise he's not acting, he's not doing anything about it, and then you'll be free. So it must be in writing, and all relevant information and documents must be attached. So if the client puts it in writing, but they don't add the relevant information, they don't attach it, sorry. The receipt of the complaint must be acknowledged promptly in writing with the client and recorded accurately in keeping with the internal guidelines. The particulars of the contact staff involved in the resolution of the complaint must be communicated to the client. So the information about the contact staff involved, who did they speak to, Jeff, Sarah, Jimmy, must also be given to the client. To tell the client, you spoke to Sarah Soap, and that is her contact details, so that she can inform the ombud this is the person he or she, the client, spoke to. The complaint must be forwarded as soon as it is practically possible to the relevant staff appointed to resolve the complaint. Right? The complaint must receive proper consideration. So you just don't look at the complaint, I'm not interested. You must give proper consideration to that complaint. And if the staff member, the trained staff member, are not sure, she could go to other people, her manager or his manager, and try to get proper consideration whether or not they will resolve the matter and how they will resolve it. The complaint process must include appropriate management and supervision controls. The client must be kept informed of the resolution process. The client must be informed of the results given within the given time frames as set out in the Act. The client must be furnished with a full explanation of if the outcome of the complaint is not in favor of the client. So if it's not in favor of the client, you can inform the client, we are not, this is not in favor of you, we are not going to pay out or resolve the matter. So that the client know why. The client must be provided with the full contact details, once again, of the ombud, and be informed that he or she has 6 months to pursue the complaint with the ombud. So the moment you tell the client you are not going to resolve this matter, sorry, they can go to the ombud. Here's the contact details of the ombud, and you must tell them that they've got 6 months. If they don't go to the ombud within that 6 months, it all lapses. So in the case where the complaint is resolved in favor of the client, the provider must ensure that a full and appropriate level of redress is offered to the client within a reasonable time frame. Assisting the client. The provider, including the representative, must request and assist the client in lodging the complaint in writing. You see, so the provider, including, not excluding, including the rep, must request and assist the client in lodging the complaint in writing. Utilize the internal system to record the complaint and keep a record of all complaints for 5 years. Remember, whenever you need to keep records, it's always for at least 5 years minimum. You can keep it longer if you want to, but at least 5 years. And one of our big FSPs in the long-term insurance, the head office is in Cape Town. They've got their first ever policy sold, I think in the late 1800s or early 1900s. They still got that record. They never destroyed their records. They still got the first insurance product they sold, and all the rest after that one. They keep their records. You can do it if you want to, but not less than 5 years. You must handle the complaints timeously and in a fair manner. You see that they don't say you must handle it within 15 days or within 30 days. No, you must handle it timeously and in a timely and fair manner. Take steps to investigate and respond promptly to complaints. Where the complaint is not resolved to the client's satisfaction, advise the client of further steps which may be available to the client in terms of the FACE Act or any other law. So when you look at number 1, basic principles and procedures, an FSP must maintain an internal complaint resolution system and procedures based on the following: maintenance of a comprehensive complaints policy outlining the FSP's commitment to the internal resolution of complaints, as well as a system and procedures to achieve this. Transparency and visibility. The system and procedures must be transparent and visible so that the clients have full knowledge of the procedures for the resolution for their complaints. Accessibility of facilities. Clients must have easy access to such procedures at any office or branch of the FSP open to clients or through postal, fax, telephone or helpdesk support, as we said before. And fairness, ensuring that a resolution of a complaint can, during and using the resolution process, be effected in a manner which is fair to both clients and the FSP and its staff. Number 2, resolution of complaints. The internal complaint resolution system and procedures of the FSP must be designed with the following in mind: to ensure effective and fair resolution of complaints by clients. The availability of adequate manpower and other resources. The adequate training of all relevant staff on provisions of the Act, the rules, and this code. That responsibilities and mandates are delegated to facilitate complaints resolution of a routine nature. The system and procedures must provide for the escalation of non-routine serious complaints and the handling thereof by staff with adequate expertise. That internal follow-up procedures are in place to avoid future occurrences giving rise to complaints, or to improve services and complaint system and procedures where necessary. When you look at specific obligations, subject to other provisions of this part of the code, the internal complaint resolution system and procedures of an FSP must contain arrangements which reduce the details of the internal complaint resolution system and procedures for writing, provide that access to the procedures is at all times available to clients through a branch or an office or an electronic medium. The availability is appropriately made known by the public press, electronic announcements, or through separate business communication by existing clients. Include in the written details of the internal complaints resolution system and the procedures a reference to the duties of the FSP and the rights of the client referred to under this section entitled Contacting of the Client. Include in the written details a clear summary of the provisions of the FACE Act, which will apply whenever the client, after the dismissal of a complaint by the FSP, wishes to pursue further proceedings before the Ombudsman. Include in the written details a name, the address, and other contact particulars of the Ombudsman. Stipulate that complaints must, if possible, be submitted in writing and must contain all relevant information, and that copies of all relevant documentation must be attached to it. Any complaint received must be promptly acknowledged in writing to the client, with communication particulars of contract staff to be involved in the resolution of the complaint and are properly internationally recorded by the relevant staff for the purpose of part of the section entitled Resolution of Complaints. Training of staff and provisions for the escalation of non-routine complaints by staff with sufficient expertise. And it must make provision that after the receipt and recording of a particular complaint, the complaint will, as soon as practically possible, be forwarded to the relevant staff appointed to consider its resolution, and that the complaint receives proper attention. Appropriate management controls are available to exercise effective control and supervision of the consideration process, and that the client is informed of the results of the consideration at the earliest convenience. If the outcome is not favorable to the client, full written reasons must be given to the client at the earliest convenience, as we said before, and the client must be advised that the complaint may, within 6 months, be pursued with the Ombudsman, whose name, address, and other contact particulars must be provided to the client at the same time. In any case where a complaint is resolved in favor of a client, the FSP must ensure that a full and appropriate level of redress is offered to the client without any delay. Okay. Waiver of rights. The code specifies that under no circumstances can a client be requested to waive any rights specified in the code. If a client wants to waive his or her rights, the provider may not accept this under any circumstances. You are not allowed to accept waiving of rights. Any waiver of rights that has been accepted shall be considered null and void. So even if you do accept waiver of rights and it goes to the Ombudsman or to the court, it shall be considered null and void and the case will carry on. So it's no point in you accepting it in any case. And that's the end of this part 13. If you've got any further questions, you know what to do. See you in the next part.